And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of podcast episodes of Talkin' Bible. And I am back with Jeannie Schwartz again. Hello, Jeannie.
Yes. Hi. How are you going today?
Good. I think we record about one a month.
Yeah, I think we do.
Roughly. Is that what you try to put into the roster?
Yes.
About one a month?
Yeah, any more than that, it's just too exhausting.
Oh, I'm feeling it. Believe me.
Yeah, well, you do so much.
Yeah. It might be a little different next year, folks. We'll probably have a mix. It'll look different. I know it's going to look different.
Okay, well, that sounds exciting.
I'm excited about it. So stay tuned.
Wow. New year, new look,
New year, new look. But we've still got to finish off. We've still got to get some more episodes recorded for this year yet and some more volunteers to come along. There's still a few holes in the roster as we hit in September. So if you're listening to this and you want to record, let me know. Maybe by the time this comes out, you might be able to record with you in November if we have to. So we are going to start today talking about the parable of the unforgiving servant, a well-known parable, I think.
Such a fun one too.
Yeah? Tell me more. What's fun about it?
I was being sarcastic.
It's a pretty harsh one. It's got some challenging words from Jesus in it.
Yeah, it's in Matthew, right? Is
Yes.
it in any of the other Gospels?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it's in
I
Luke.
don't think it's in Luke. That's an inside joke. If you have a look at our Bible reading plan, we've got included Luke 16 there, but it's a mistake.
It doesn't make any sense.
If you're reading that and
one.
going, what's
Yeah.
that? That's a mistake. It shouldn't be there.
Yes.
So, don't think it's included in any of the other Gospels. It sounds like a Matthewism, but
I learned a new word when I was doing this study.
other than Matthewism,
Yeah, Matthewism is a good one, but I've
Yeah.
heard somebody say that before.
have
Must
you?
have been you. Yes.
I don't know if I've ever said it before. But anyway, carry on. What did you learn, Jeannie?
Pericope.
Pericope.
Oh, geez, I can't even say it.
A pericope.
Pericope?
Yeah.
How do you get pericope from the way that that's spelt? There's no accent or
Yes,
anything.
I know.
on it.
Do you know why I've only learned that word in my recent masters because I've been doing the pericope of the woman caught in adultery. That's the first time in
Right,
35
okay.
years I've ever heard the word too. But
Okay,
it is
so
pericope.
Pericope. All right,
Yeah.
I'll take
But
your word for
it does
it.
spell like pericope.
So what is a pericope?
Oh, now you've got me. I think it's a short, pithy story. No, you've got the definition in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Could you just give it to us? I can't remember.
It's a section of text forming a coherent thought suitable for use in a speech or a preach.
Right.
A passage of scripture to be read in public worship or a book containing such passages.
Okay, that makes sense. And
Yes.
that's what this one is, a short. I was a bit confused because the pericope of the woman caught in adultery is actually a story, whereas this one is more a parable. But it's so that's,
Well, is the pericope just the first sentence?
I don't know.
Or does it continue on?
I don't
because
know.
the first sentence is, Peter approaches Jesus and asks, Lord, how many times must I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? As many as 7 times. 7 times.
Right.
Just that short bit. Well, continuing on to 70 times
70
7.
times 7.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So is that the hook, if you like, that starts the conversation? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. My understanding was the pericope is it makes sense that you said it's a tangible body of text that could be taught. Because you can understand how that passage of the women in adultery is a cohesive story. This
Yes.
is a cohesive story if you link the parable with the question. I think it's...
Yeah, but it's slightly different. I should have
Okay.
read the next verse, which
All
is
right.
22. I tell you, not as many as 7, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. Mm-hmm. Now that you can preach on.
Right. But why couldn't you use the rest of the story?
Well, because the rest of the story, he doesn't actually forgive the guy at the end.
Oh, okay. Let's just see where that goes. I'm intrigued by that.
I don't know. It's different.
Who doesn't forgive who?
Well, when the first servant does
Yes.
a terrible thing, then the master doesn't come back and forgive him 70 times 7. He
okay.
actually sends him to prison
I
and
see.
gives him the sentence that he
sta-
deserves.
Okay, got you. Right. Okay. I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
see?
So on one hand, Jesus is saying, hey, you should forgive. But in the other sense, you're saying that after, well, maybe tell the story. Let's just
Okay,
just give the story because our listeners might not know the story. Otherwise, we're going to get ahead
All
of
right.
ourselves.
Do you want to tell it quickly?
All right, I'm going to try and tell it quickly. I probably should read it. It's just as quick. One guy he owes his master an insurmountable amount of money that he'll never be able
Loads
to
of
pay.
money.
Yeah,
like money you can't even
you couldn't
conceive.
consider. Yeah, exactly. It's like beyond his entire lifetime to pay back. And he's going to get thrown in jail because he owes his master that money, and he begs for forgiveness, he begs for mercy, and the master forgives him the entire debt. And then he walks straight outside and he finds a fellow servant who owes him money, and it's not a small amount of money, but it's not an insurmountable amount of money. I think the NLT says like a few $1,000s, but my understanding was it's from, is it 100 denarii? Is that what it is?
Yes, it's
yeah,
like 1 week's or 1 month of
yeah, now
work or
100 denarii, basically an average Jewish wage was a denarii for a day's pay.
Oh,
So we are talking probably 3 months' wages here. So to put that in modern vernacular, we're talking, in the low tens of thousands, maybe $15,000, $20,000, right? So it's not a small amount of money as if it's a small debt you could just dismiss. It's substantial, but it's nothing compared to what he earned. And what happens is he demands that guy, and that guy does what he'd done to the master. Please forgive me, give me time to pay it back. And he takes him and throws him in prison and says no. And then the master comes and finds out what's happened, and the master then, like your point you're making, doesn't forgive him. He actually says, no, now you've blown it. You're going to be thrown into prison as well. And I think what you're saying is, therefore, the master hasn't forgiven him. So,
yes.
Okay.
Not 70 times 7.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What do you think's going on there?
Well, I don't know. I'll just say I wanted you to say that story because sometimes when you read it, it sounds a bit wooden, but when you said it the way you said it, it makes it more easier for us to understand in our language.
Because we get it, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And one thing that I really thought about with this is, do you remember when the US bailed out all the banks?
Yep.
Yeah, so they bailed out the banks. There's billions or trillions of dollars,
trillions
right?
To keep the economy going.
Yeah, but forget about that.
Yeah,
okay,
right,
so they just wiped off the debt for those banks. Those banks were never had to pay that back. Such grace was given to them.
Yep.
Yeah, the banks then turned around, and whoever owed $15,000, $20,000, they went after them.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's how I saw that story.
So that's happening. This story is happening at a societal, economic, corporate level.
Yep.
Which every corporate level exercise happens at a heart level sin. So there's human sin, human selfishness at the heart that's behind those banks doing that. It's just like war begins with anger in the individual human heart. That's what I think is going on there. So that's a good example of what Jesus is saying here.
Yeah, well, this is a great story because it does talk about the society like that, government and things, business, but it also talks to the heart and it also has a personal, aspect
touch
of the story, which we need to take into our hearts.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by you saying that, you've gone straight to the fact that it's confusing because Jesus has said, don't forgive him 7 times, forgive him 77 times. And then you seem to be alluding to the fact that what's confronting in the story is that the dude who was forgiven in the end wasn't actually forgiven.
Yeah, let me go down to my bottom of the bottom of my notes where I have all that here. There, that's what I have. The focus here isn't on what will happen to those who do not show. Sorry, the focus here is what happens to people when they do not show mercy.
That's the answer.
That's the answer, and they do not forgive themselves. There is a cost to that. Not forgiving. Yes.
Yeah. That's it. I think we could move on to getting hung up on the point of, he didn't really get forgiveness from the master. But what Jesus is trying to tell in this story, in this parable, if you like, he is addressing the question that Peter asked. And then he goes on and says, it's not about just counting the times you forgive until you've forgiven 7 times. He's trying to say, if you truly grasp what God has forgiven you of, then the result of that will be that you will extend grace to others.
That's right.
And if you don't, there are significant consequences. In fact, he would say you haven't really, it's hypocritical. You haven't really accepted God's grace if you can't extend it to others.
That's right. And I think it's really about reconciliation. Once you receive that grace from God, then you need to do whatever you can do to go and reconcile with others. And this guy, the servant, did not go and reconcile. He went after him, went after his throat.
Yeah, he was straight for the jugular,
Yeah, threw him in jail. I mean, he was never going to pay that back in jail. You can't work in jail.
You can't work in jail to pay that kind of money back.
Yes.
No. So Jesus is using an extreme example to try to illustrate to us that if we fully grasp God's grace, then we should be willing to extend forgiveness to others. And I've often said this to people, if people are struggling to forgive, the first thing to do is before you focus on the other person you need to forgive, is to do some business with God and see if you can grasp God's forgiveness of you. Because if we can truly grasp that grace, the parable is here. If you sin against me, you might owe me $15,000. But my sin against my master is infinitely more than the $15,000 you owe me. So for me to understand how far short I have fallen of a holy, perfect, gracious God who has willingly forgiven me, even though he has no reason to other than his insurmountable, abundant love, if I can grasp that and truly recognize how depraved I am without that, it makes it easier for me then to go and extend grace to you.
Not only does it make it easier, it actually makes you want to extend
Yes,
grace.
good point. Yeah.
Because you have been afforded it.
Yep.
So you want to give that to others.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what this guy doesn't get.
That's what he doesn't get. Somehow, I think deep down inside, somehow there's some entitlement.
Yeah,
You know, he
yes.
thinks he's entitled to this grace from this forgiveness from his master. And when we have this sense of I'm entitled to this because maybe deep down inside, we're speculating beyond the text, but I know what happens in my own heart there. I think, well, maybe what I did isn't that bad anyway. Or I'm entitled to this because I've been working hard for you, God. That kind of thing.
Yes, yep. I see what you're saying.
And therefore, it's not truly a grasp of grace. Grace is not grace unless it's totally unmerited and totally undeserved.
So how do you grasp grace?
That's a really good question. And I think we have to look in our heart and truly look within and look at the inner workings of our heart, how we respond under pressure, how we respond when we feel hurt, when we feel like people have abandoned us or misunderstood us, and look at what goes on inside our hearts at that time. Reflect on it, journal it. Because I know what goes on in my heart. How dare you do that to me? I've been trying to do my best, et cetera, et cetera. And the amount of I language that comes out in that moment, that's a good indicator that my heart is not right. I tried, I did this, or you language, you did this against me. But if I can reflect that back and go, when I see myself going, I did this and I worked for this and I earned that, that should be a reminder to me of how much my security is based on myself and not on God's grace. That's the best way to do it. We've got to grasp our own sinfulness and the blackness of our own fleshly heart. Once we do that, it does make it easier to receive God's grace and then extend it to others.
As a believer in Jesus, how important is it to be able to live in this world of grace?
I think it is fundamental to what it means to be truly human, to be the person that God has created and redeemed us to be. If we don't, we live by the world's systems. Because at its core, unforgiveness, at its core, anger or demanding of others, it's really selfishness or greed. It's I'm going to do it my way, which is, how many times do I take it back to Genesis 3? That's Garden of Eden language, right? So it's fundamental to the Christian life to grasp grace and recognize I have been set on a pathway toward living a radically different life, a life that is selfless, a life that actually prefers and honors others over my own wishes. I don't think we can advance in our Christian journey without grasping this, because it's what will shape us and change us.
So how do I forgive somebody who's done something against me or has a big debt?
Okay. Start with grasping God's forgiveness yourself and ask someone. If you're struggling with that, ask someone, because that's fundamental to what it means to be a follower of Jesus, is to really grasp God's infinite grace. Then, once you've got that, I think I mentioned this on Sunday in my sermon, and I mention it regularly. There's just one other main thing that comes up in my pastoral experience, and that is that people don't understand forgiveness. So they think that if you've hurt me, Jeannie, and I forgive you, that somehow I'm saying what you did to me was okay. But that's not forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't even begin until I acknowledge that what you did to me wasn't okay.
Okay. Okay. To use the word okay. So if I am going to forgive somebody, I used to think was saying that's okay. What you're saying, I can agree with you there.
Yeah.
How do I reconcile that in my mind? Forgiveness doesn't equal it being okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You begin with that. I say forgiveness.
Because if I forgive somebody, then automatically they might think, oh, they're okay with what I did.
They're okay with what I did. That's right. And I don't recommend going around saying, I forgive you, but what you did to me is still not right, because it's going to escalate things, right? So this is an internal heart issue. Actually, whether the other person decides whether it was right or wrong is ultimately going to be up to them and between them and God. Because if I say to you, Jeannie, I forgive you, but you need to know what you did was wrong, I question whether I've truly handed over the judgment of that act to the Lord, because really me saying that is me still sitting in judgment on you. I'm forcing myself to be your judge. I can make a personal judgment as long as I hand that over to God and say, God, you be that person. So my job is to forgive you. Say, Jeannie, what you did to me was wrong. At the very least, I felt it was wrong. You know, mate, sometimes our own hearts, maybe it's our own brokenness that makes it feel wrong. Maybe what you did to me isn't as wrong, or
maybe it's actually not
maybe
wrong.
It's not
but
wrong.
You think it's
or
wrong.
I think it's wrong. That's right. Or maybe it's not as wrong as I think it is, whatever it might be. But still, I have to acknowledge that that's how I feel and that's what I believe. Then I can go, well, Lord, I hand over that judgment of that right or wrong to you. You're a better judge than me. I actually don't know if I'm building up my own narrative here. I can't be confident that I'm 100% right in my narrative. And I see this in people who I see this in myself and in people who have been genuinely wronged through, maybe criminal acts or something that's very significant. And they genuinely wronged by that. But we have this tendency to then build the narrative even further and add other wrongs onto it. And somewhere along the line, we need to be aware of our own propensity to do that and say, I'm going to recognize that I'm a broken human being. I'm an incomplete human being. I'm incapable of being a just judge, but he is. So I'm going to leave that with God. I'm going to forgive and extend and move on and say, God, this is over to you. I'm trusting you with this. I'm going to forgive this person so it doesn't live in my head anymore. I trust that you will right every wrong. And if this person, doesn't change, they will come under judgment. But I would back up further and go, I've got to remember that I didn't deserve forgiveness. And all my pleading saying, God, please forgive me for my sins, for the things I've done wrong. It doesn't, my pleading for God to forgive me doesn't make God have to forgive me. It's not my work of pleading with him that goes, oh, okay, now I have to forgive you because you asked. I could plead for my life for the rest of eternity and it still wouldn't be enough. So it is grace. It's God saying, hey, I'm going to bestow this upon you unmeritedly because I love you infinitely. Once I grasp that, hopefully I can forgive you the same way.
You mentioned God being just before. That's what he is at the end of this parable.
I think so.
He's just. The first servant gets the punishment that he gives the second servant.
Yes.
That the first servant gives the second servant, not the master.
Not the master, that's right.
Yeah, and that seems a just judgment.
It does. In fact, you might go, that's harsh, but I agree. I think that's God issuing justice to that situation, because otherwise, that servant that owed the second servant that owed the multiple thousands of dollars, he hasn't received justice because he's been treated unjustly, and so it's only right that God would bring justice to that situation and vindicate the bad treatment that person has had.
Yes, and the reason why I said it doesn't end with forgiveness is because it recalls to mind that there will be a final judgment.
Yes, yep.
And that's what Jesus is setting up here.
Totally.
I'm going to forgive you up until the point, you die, and then
I'm going to forgive you until
there's judgment.
And there's
allegedly.
judgment coming. Yes, that's right. And that should be a humbling reminder to me too, that and we're not escaping. We might be escaping. Romans 8:1 says, there is now therefore no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. The best explanation of that is that there is no judicial sentence of death upon me. This separation from God, this eternal separation from God is no longer upon me because I'm in Christ Jesus. But that does not mean that, as it says elsewhere in the New Testament, it says, I will be called to give an account for every careless word that I have spoken. Every act of my heart, it will be shown before the Lord.
Yes, and every person that you do not give grace and mercy and forgiveness to.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to get locked up in whether or not God will forgive me. I think the point of this message is more that if I harbor unforgiveness towards these people, I can't then turn around and expect that God will forgive me.
Well, the guy, their first servant, it's not like he acted like he welcomed the forgiveness, did he? He wasn't changed because he had been given the grace and mercy.
That's right. He didn't change his
actually
heart.
Doubled down on the...
Which makes me wonder, I think the point Jesus is trying to make is that he never really grasped what he's been forgiven of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
how good the master was.
Or how good the master was. Great point. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And then he didn't want to look like the master, He didn't want his character to be like the master's. And if he did, then he would have changed and given grace and mercy.
Yeah. So back to that, that's why I think if we can truly get a grasp on how much we've been graced with forgiveness, that begins the shaping process of changing our hearts.
So is this why they call it a
pericope? Because it's a teaching point
or
whatever.
Teaching. So the whole thing is a teaching.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I think the whole thing is a teaching. I think Jesus' parable here.
It forms a coherent thought.
That's it. Perfect. That's what you said. Yeah, it's like one. So Jesus' parable is the answer to the question. See, Peter comes to Jesus and says, how many times do we need to forgive? 7 times? And that's because that was a common, there were Jewish rabbis teaching that. Oh, you need to forgive someone 7 times. So that's why Jesus ups the ante and says 77 or 7 times 7. It's basically perfection. It's perfection upon perfection. He's going, no. Forget this whole argument about 7 times. Basically, Jesus is saying, if you're counting how many times you're forgiving a person, then you're not actually forgiving them once, let alone 7 times. He's trying to up the ante and say forgiveness is much more than sitting there counting, right? That's it, 6, but next time you do it, I'm not going to forgive you. or you've done 7, that's it, you've blown it now.
Yeah, well, that's not a changed heart
That's
at all,
not a changed
is it?
heart at all.
You're counting
Yeah.
until they get it really
Exactly.
wrong.
Yeah,
until
exactly.
then you can
I'm going
finally,
to
yes.
give them what for. And I think that's the point. I mean, it makes sense to us, and that's what Jesus is saying. If your heart's truly changed, you will behave differently to that.
There's a lot in this.
There is.
I wish we could speak longer, but I
Yeah.
think you've covered it quite well.
Yeah, it's
in
worth
this
reflecting
time.
on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Our debt to God is infinitely greater than anything that we could have owed others. So remember that, because that'll hopefully keep us humble and merciful towards those that
Yeah,
have
that's the
harmed
point.
us. That's the point.
Yes. So
Yeah.
for me personally, there's a lot to think about.
Yep.
But who's Jesus for you in this?
I think I would go, what's this whole issue of Jesus is an infinitely gracious, kind, forgiving God. I would start with that. If he can forgive me, that will help me to forgive others. That's the point one. I don't think I'm capable of forgiving you if you've hurt me if I haven't grasped this infinite forgiving Jesus who's forgiven me.
Yeah, and he seems like a guy who's hoping that you grasp that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you do, you'll get it. You'll be changed.
You'll be changed, and you'll actually be able to live the life that God intends for you to live. A life that is a peacemaker, a life that is fulfilled, a life that isn't consumed by your own sin or your own bitterness. That's what he wants for us. He wants us to live our best lives.
Free of bitterness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I'm happy with that
Happy with
today.
that? Me too.
Yeah.
That's a challenging one, but let's keep going on that one. Just keep meditating. I have to visit that one regularly in my own mind. Anytime I feel like I'm not extending forgiveness, I'll come back to that one.
Yeah, I should probably look at it more often.
I think we all do. All right. Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you on the next episode.